ሰላም ጤና ይስጥልን ውድ የዲፕሎማሲ ሾው ፕሮግራማችን ተከታታዮች ለዛሬው ፕሮግራማችን የመረጥንላችሁ ሀገር ህንድን ሲሆን አሁን የምንገኘው በኢትዮጵያ የህንድ አምባሳደር የሆኑት መኖሪያ ቤት ውስጥ ነው። ህንድ እንደሚታወቀው ረጅም ዘመን ያላት ጥንታዊት ሀገር ናት። ከ2500 ዓመተ ዓለም ጀምሮ ህንዳውያን ጥንታዊ ስልጣኔ እንደነበራቸው ይነገራል። የጥንታዊ ስልጣኔ መቀመጫም ነበረች። ህንድ በቆዳ ስፋቷ በዓለም የ7ኛ ደረጃ ላይ ስትገኝ በህዝብ ብዛቷ ደግሞ 1.2 ቢሊዮን ህዝብ በመያዝ በዓለም ሁለተኛ ደረጃ ላይ ትገኛለች። በጂኦግራፊያዊ አቀማመጧ ደግሞ በደቡባዊ እስያ የምትገኝ ሀገር ናት። ህንድ መጠሪያ ስሟን ያገኘችው ኢንዱስ ከሚባለው ወንዝ ነው። ኢንዲያ የሚለው መጠሪያዋ የኢንዱስ ህዝብ ማለት ይሆናል። በህንድ ትልቋ የንግድ ከተማ ሙምባይ ስትሆን ዋና ከተማዋ ደግሞ ኒው ዴልሂ ናት። በሀገራችን ኢትዮጵያና በህንድ መካከል ያለው ህዝብ ለህዝብ እንዲሁም የንግድ ግንኙነት በአክሱም ዘመነ መንግስት እንደጀመረ ይነገራል። እንዲሁም ህንዳውያን ነጋዴዎች ወርቅ፣ ሐርና የተለያዩ ቅመማ ቅመሞችን ወደ ኢትዮጵያ ያስገቡ እንደነበረ ታሪኮች ያስረዳሉ። እንደ አውሮፓውያን አቆጣጠር በ1952 ዓ.ም ሁለቱ ሀገራት በአዲስ አበባና በኒው ዴልሂ ኤምባሲያቸውን ሊከፍቱ ችለዋል። አሁን ደግሞ ባልደረባዬ ቤተልሔም በኢትዮጵያ የህንድ አምባሳደር ከሆኑት አምባሳደር አኑራግ ሽሪቫስታቫ ጋር ያደረገችውን ቆይታ ተከታትለን እንመለስ።
Thank you, Your Excellency, for having this interview with us. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you, Bethlehem. I am Anurag Shrivastava. I am Ambassador of India to Ethiopia, Djibouti, and to the African Union. I arrived here in September 2016, and I have been a career diplomat in my ministry for the last 19 years. Of these years, I have had diplomatic assignments in Switzerland and in Sri Lanka, handling multilateral diplomacy related to human rights, humanitarian affairs, trade issues in Geneva, and bilateral political relations and delivery of development assistance in Sri Lanka. That was my last diplomatic posting. I have had domestic responsibilities pertaining to work in the spokesperson's office and also related to administration and budgetary matters in our ministry. I also had opportunity to have in my previous position an oversight of our development projects around the world. So all in all, this is by way of my own background, and of course Ethiopia is my first ambassadorial posting. As happens with all first things, it is special in many ways, and I think I'm privileged and honored to be here.
Thank you, Ambassador. So we know India has a very long history as a country, a very big country. Can you briefly tell us the history of your country?
Well, it's a difficult answer to contain in the length of this interview, but of course, like Ethiopia, we are an ancient civilization. And it goes back to eternity if we go back in terms of our history. What I can tell you is that it is a very rich history. It is a history which is very diverse and which reflects in the kind of society and country that we have. We are a nation which is culturally diverse. We are a nation which is, in terms of our size and in terms of our population, we are the second largest in terms of population and 7th largest in terms of our size. The country has different geographical, cultural, linguistic regions. We have 29 states, 7 union territories, and a reflection of our diversity is that there are 22 official languages in the country. And you started off by asking about our history, and all of it actually flows from the way our nation has evolved over a period of time. As you know, we gained our independence in 1947 after a few centuries of British rule. And thereafter, the nation has come about as a country which, though it is diverse, it is united in its diversity. It is today the world's largest democracy.
So how did Ethiopia and India started their diplomatic relationship? And when was the first historical relationship? When was the first time that we started India and Ethiopia relationship?
Considering that we are two ancient civilizations, our relations go back to times immemorial. I think the first recorded instance of exchange between our two countries is of our traders coming to the Aksumite Empire. That was sometime in the 1st century AD. But I'm sure exchanges would have been happening before that. We have evidence of coins from India found in Aksum. And Aksum was a large center of trade. Our traders used to come here and would exchange gold and ivory for silk and spices. Over the centuries, this kind of trade exchange continued. I would say in the medieval times, the exchange became two ways. People from Ethiopia also went in large numbers to India. And they adorned very important positions in medieval courts and kingdoms in India. If you've heard of Malik Ambar from Harar, he was a general who went on to become a king in India. We still have evidence of Ethiopians who migrated to India at that point of time, their descendants living in various parts of India. On the other side, here in the Gondar kingdom, there were a lot of Indians who came here and they helped in construction of palaces here. There are two very interesting things. One, papaya. Okay. Papaya was introduced by Indians in Ethiopia. Similarly, we had in medieval times a Mughal king called Emperor Jahangir. And in his court, a zebra from Ethiopia was presented, and that was the first time someone saw a zebra in India. So, that is what I'm trying to tell you, that these exchanges were very rich and very varied. They went on over the centuries. Indian soldiers participated in the liberation of Ethiopia when the British forces came here to liberate Ethiopia from the Italians. There were Indian soldiers in that contingent. Thereafter, we've had our trade exchanges which continued, and our businessmen came in large numbers in the early 20th century. And you still have many of them here. Some of them are into the 3rd and 4th generations. When Ethiopia decided to bring in modern education, Indians came in large numbers to teach in schools here. That was again early 20th century. And that continued till the last decade of the last century. Thereafter, in the present day, you have about 2,500 teachers in universities across Ethiopia. We have a significant number of businessmen and investors here. We have professionals, all in all, a sizable Indian community by many standards, a very vibrant community. But what it all shows is that we've had an exchange which goes back to times immemorial and which has continued till the present day. And that really reflects in the kind of present day relations that we have.
So how did the diplomatic relationship start? How did your embassy opened, and what was the reason behind the opening of the embassies and everything?
In 1947, when we gained independence, there was a goodwill mission which was sent here. It was led by Sardar Sant Singh, who later on went on to become our first ambassador here. And maybe you would know that Ethiopia was amongst the first countries to set up an embassy in India, and your presence there is very large and very significant. Those of you, if your viewers, some of them have traveled to Delhi, they would have seen the large presence that Ethiopia has in terms of its embassy there. So relations started soon after independence. And I think it was very natural because Ethiopia is one country in Africa with which we had very deep relations even before our independence. In 1948, relations were formally established at what is called the legation level, and then in 1958, we established our diplomatic mission here. Incidentally, this year we are celebrating 70 years of diplomatic relations. So this is a very special year for us.
So what was your first impression when you reached Ethiopia, first time?
Well, I'd always heard of this country, and I'd heard very good things about this country. And in fact, when I had the option of choosing my first ambassadorial posting, I opted for Ethiopia because I was very keen that, with the kind of opportunities that this place offers, with the kind of bilateral relations that we have, and the place that it is, it would certainly be a very good break for me in terms of my career. What I found was that my expectations were more than fulfilled. When you opt for a diplomatic posting, there are various things that one looks at, and you try and collect information. The information that you collect is usually, at the level of the country, at the level of your professional work, and also in terms of living conditions for the family and all that. As a country, it is a country which is a very important political actor in Africa. It is a country which is, by all means, the diplomatic capital of Africa. Professionally, it has various international organizations based here. And since I'm also accredited to the African Union, it is a very important diplomatic station. It also has the UN Economic Commission for Africa. So professionally, there's a lot happening here. And in terms of living conditions, I think beautiful climate, beautiful landscape, locales, beautiful people, a friendly environment to operate in for the family. So all in all, I think it has something which is attractive at all levels. And therefore, when we came here, our expectations were more than exceeded. And I would say the first impressions were very, very positive.
Yeah, you came with your family as well.
Yes.
How did they find it as well?
Well, they are very happy here. They were very happy to see the place. And as I told you, it is generally the sense that you get here is that it is a very comfortable, friendly place. It has a lot of similarities to India. I think that also is an added attraction. The kind of food, the kind of dress, the kind of, even commonalities in language that you find here. You feel that you're not very far from India.
So Ethiopia in India has a very big import-export trade relationship. Can you tell us about that?
Our trade relations have been quite vibrant. They have grown well in the last few years. The present volumes are about $1.13 billion. This is the total volume of trade between the two countries. What is notable here is that, India is a big market for Ethiopian products, and similarly, there are certain products which are exported from India into Ethiopia. But what we find is that the trade balance is a bit adverse. And that is something that we are trying to address, because the volumes of exports from India are much more than the volumes of export from Ethiopia. And as a long-standing partner, as a long-standing trading partner, we realize that this is something which is not sustainable. So therefore, there are efforts from both sides to further diversify our trade and to address this trade deficit, the trade imbalance that we have between the two countries. Otherwise, in terms of our framework for trade, during the visit of our president in October last year, we signed a memorandum of understanding on trade cooperation. Essentially, this agreement on trade would further help us to address issues that we may have, as well as facilitate greater volumes of trade between the two sides.
So we know India is one of the leading economy in the world now, and you're part of the BRICS. And even there are recent reports among even the BRIC countries, India has a very good record. Can you tell us how India can achieve this level?
What I can tell you is that, from where we started to where we are now. It is a little over 70 years after independence. It is a country, as I've told you, the second largest in terms of population, sixth largest economy in the world, seventh largest in terms of area. Now, what we find is that in terms of our own population, we need to grow faster if we have to provide them the kind of opportunities that they need. We have a very large young population, and this is very similar to Ethiopia. 50% of our population are under the age of 25. 2/3 of our population are under the age of 35. Now, these are young people who have aspirations, who have hopes for the future. Our leadership has realized that this can be our greatest strength, our greatest resource, our greatest asset. And in the past few years, we focused in transforming our country. The target is 2022 when we complete 75 years of independence. And the effort is that by then we create a new India, which basically harnesses the strength and skills of the young population. So that is where we are focused. And if you compare our demographics with many of the other countries, you mentioned the BRICS, this is where the essential difference is, that our demographics is essentially young. And we are trying to leverage the strength of the young people. I talked of transformative goals that we have. One of our important goals is to have greater focus on investment and growth in the last few years, which is showing results now. We are trying to make India as an attractive investment destination. If you have followed the ease of doing business, the World Bank report on ease of doing business and its ranking has shown a 30-point jump for India. We've moved up from 130 to 100 this year. And this has largely been made possible because of our focus on improving the business environment in the country. Because we want to bring in more investments, which will lead in turn to growth, job creation, and employment. There again, we've done this through working at the policy level. Today, India is amongst the most open economies in the world. We've done this by also working at the level of taxation policies. If you followed in the last 1 year, we've put in place, starting from July last year, what is called the Goods and Services Tax, which is a very transformational change for the entire country, because for the first time, a country as large as India and as diverse and different, each state, in fact, had a different tax regime. What this Goods and Services Tax has done, it has brought all of them under a single unified tax regime. And we say that we were born as a country in 1947, but in 2017 we have become a single market. So that has made India as a very attractive investment destination. Small changes also in terms of the regulatory environment and the administrative setup. For example, getting construction permits has become much easier. This is one of the parameters of the ease of doing business. In terms of incorporating a company, today you can incorporate a company in India in 1 day. That's become possible. So these are the changes which have been made at the policy level, at the regulatory level, at the level of the working environment. Then in terms of digitization, the amount of effort that has gone into creating a digital economy in the last few years has started showing results. What our government believes is that in order to really harness the strength and skill of our people, we need to empower them. We need to empower them by empowering them financially, by empowering them digitally. We have a moniker called JAM, J-A-M. J stands for Jan Dhan Yojana, which is essentially probably the largest financial inclusion program of its kind in the world, which means that each one who's been unbanked, today the government is trying to connect him to a bank account. A stands for Aadhaar. Aadhaar card is what is an identity document which has been provided to each and every citizen. M is the mobile component of this moniker, where today we are probably the largest single market for mobile phones. The penetration of mobile telephony in our country has gone up to 1 billion people. So you can imagine a situation where 1 billion people have mobile phones. They have a unique identity card which connects them to various government schemes and projects. And each one of them has a bank account. And the amount of transformation and change that this brings in terms of empowerment, in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of job creation, in terms of wealth creation. So this is the change that we are seeing happening. And therefore, we believe that if we continue on this path, we'll be able to bring about a new India in 2022. The third pillar of all this is, of course, the focus on infrastructure development and on energy, because we are not an energy-rich nation. We are actually energy-starved. We import 70% of our oil requirement. Now, in the last few years, our focus has gone up in terms of creating capacities for renewable energy in our country. Our energy mix is now almost 30 to 35% focused on renewables. Only 60% is fossil fuels. And we have a very ambitious target of creating capacity of 200 gigawatts purely of renewables, in terms of which the solar energy component of that will be 100 gigawatts. So that is the focus on the energy side. In terms of infrastructure, the road network, the railway network, and ports, which earlier were kind of a constraint in terms of our investment and growth, that has become the area of focus. So all in all, as I said, one, the investment climate, improving the investment climate. 2, digital and financial empowerment of our citizens. And 3, the focus on improving our capacities for infrastructure and for renewable energy. I think all in all, this is what is the driving force behind our growth.
How about agriculture? Is agriculture sector, how is it? Is it self-sufficient so far?
Yes. Good you touched upon that. In terms of feeding 1 billion plus people, that in itself is a challenge. And one of our biggest achievements that I count post-independence is that we have reached a state of self-sufficiency. We have reached not only self-sufficiency, we are not only feeding our population, we have also become surplus in terms of many of food grains and other things. So therefore, I think it is a unique achievement which has been brought about by, again, a lot of focus on not only agriculture, irrigation, but also in terms of science and technology. We had something called a green revolution in the 1970s and 80s, wherein a lot of research and development and findings from our agricultural laboratories was transferred to the farm and to the farmers, which led to a quantum jump in our agricultural output. So we are actually reaping the dividends of a lot of good policies and practices which were put into place over a period of time.
Yeah, we know India is one of the leading countries, especially for Ethiopians, and when it comes to health tourism. Many Ethiopians goes to India for medical treatment. Can you tell us how advanced your health facilities are? And are you planning to work more to attract Indian health facilities for more tourists?
Yes, we have a large number of people going for healthcare tourism purposes. The numbers would be about, from Ethiopia in the last year or so, we've issued more than 2,000 visas for this purpose. It has become an important destination for this part of the world, and not only I would say Africa and Asia, but we have also people coming from the West, patients coming from the West for various treatments, for essentially two reasons. One, our healthcare facilities are able to provide affordable healthcare for various cardiovascular, for joint replacements, orthopedics and such things at a price which is very competitive, as well as a quality which is of a high level. So, this twin combination of affordability as well as good quality is what has made Indian healthcare facilities very attractive. We realize that, of course, we will continue to attract. This sector has been growing exponentially, but over a period of time, it would be in our interest that we work with countries who send us these patients to also develop their healthcare facilities. And this effort is ongoing with Ethiopia also. I can share with you that over the past couple of years, many Indian healthcare majors, people who have chains of hospitals all across the country, and they have been receiving patients from Ethiopia. They have come and looked at the possibility of setting up a tertiary healthcare facility in Ethiopia. Discussions are also underway, and I hope soon something or the other will materialize.
Okay, so living in Ethiopia in the past 2 years, what have you noticed when it comes to culture? What do we share between Ethiopia and India?
Oh, we share a lot. We share a lot in terms of, as I told you, in terms of our dress. What our women wear, saris, and what do you call that, shama?
Abasha kamis.
Yeah, abasha kamis. That, in terms of the way women cover their heads, in terms of food, the use of spices. We have what in India we call garam masala, and I think you also have an equivalent of 6 or 7 spices, which is used to, which is a common additive to your cuisine. We also share our love for Indian cinema. And what I find is that there are many people in Ethiopia who I come across who have picked up the language Hindi only by watching Indian cinema. Wow. And in fact, we have this group of young boys who we invite each time to perform whenever we have events in our embassy. Now, this group of young boys speak Hindi fluently, and they have not had any formal training or education in learning the language. They have picked it up purely by watching Hindi movies. Of course, also our general outlook, our attitudes, the way we look at the world, all of which is really reflective of the long civilizational exchange that we had over a period of time, and the strong people-to-people ties that we have.
So India, celebrating the 70th years, are planning to have a big cultural festival in the coming October. Can you tell us about this program? What are you planning to do?
Yes, we are very excited about it. This is called the Festival of India. And the Festival of India is the largest cultural exposition that the government organizes anywhere outside. The fact that we've chosen Ethiopia in this continent, and also this year, is a tribute to our relationship, also to the fact that we are celebrating 70 years of diplomatic relations. This Festival of India is going to be a multi-city, a multi-venue event spread over a few months. We plan to launch it on the 2nd of October. Now, 2nd of October, as you may know, is the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi. And this 2nd of October is particularly special for us because it is the 150th birth anniversary. Would launch this with, of course, tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. And we also plan to have a permanent installation in this city of his bust. As you would know, there is a road named after him in Piazza, and that is where we plan to install the bust, inaugurate the bust on that day. And thereafter, this Festival of India would be launched, which would have various facets of our culture displayed. One, of course, the dance and the music component. Troops, some of them would also perform, various items related to Bollywood. Then the other part of it would be the sports, which is cricket. Cricket is another very important part of our soft power and how we see India. Last year, as you would know, we had the first edition of what we call the India-Ethiopia Cricket League in this country. Now, cricket is a game which is played, of course, in India, but also in many countries which were under British rule in the past. And it is in Africa, it is played in Kenya and South Africa. We thought that it would be nice if we could start playing cricket here. So, a group of Indians, we got them together and we launched this league. We managed to get 24 teams. And this tournament went on for over a week. We had only Indians last time, but this time we also hope to include a few Ethiopians. And we have found that many Ethiopians are taking to the game. So the cricket would be one part of it. Of course, there would be food, because Indian culture is not complete without Indian cuisine. And I'm sure you would have sampled Indian cuisine here. Indian food is fairly popular. There are Indian restaurants here. We plan to have a food festival also during that period. There would be other elements like textile. I was talking of the commonalities that we find in dress. Now, what we see is the usage of fabric, of textiles, of designs, etc. are fairly common between the two countries. So we are trying to encourage some designers to take up fusion concepts, and all of that would be showcased. There would also be exhibitions on other aspects of Indian life and culture. So all in all, it's what we can promise you is that it will be a full bonanza which will last a few months, and where you will see a bit of India in various parts of Ethiopia.
Okay. How about yoga? We know yoga is one of the biggest international culture you have as an Indian. Tell us about how did yoga started in your country even?
See, yoga is very, very old and ancient. It is a part of ancient Indian heritage. And it is essentially, the word means union. So it is basically a union of body and consciousness, of the individual with the larger universe. Essentially, it is a set of physical, mental, and spiritual practices. And one common misconception is that yoga has something to do with Hindu religion or anything. In fact, yoga has got nothing to do with any religion. It is just a practice which came about in India and which has now gained popularity to the extent that in many parts of the world there are large and significant numbers of yoga practitioners. In the year 2014, the United Nations adopted 21st of June as the International Day of Yoga. And again, the fact that this has now become a common world heritage was recognized when 177 countries voted in favor of that resolution. So thereafter, we've been celebrating the International Day of Yoga, and essentially what we are doing is what was stated in that resolution, that it is upon us, when I say us, is all of us, to popularize yoga and to make people aware of its benefits. So that is what we do on the International Day of Yoga. What we find is that now we've had 3 editions of this International Day of Yoga. In the last edition, we had more than 1,000 people come to the venue to practice yoga. We have a short yoga practice essentially, to demonstrate the benefits of yoga, and we say that anyone and everyone can join. So we found more than 1,000 enthusiastic people joined us last time, which shows the kind of popularity that it is gaining in this country. Between the first, second, and third International Days of Yoga, we see a clear increase in participation. This year would be the 4th International Day of Yoga, and it would be on the 16th of June, on Saturday in the morning at Hotel Intercontinental. So through your program, I would like to invite everyone here in Addis and around Addis to please join us on that day. You can come, the entry is free, and you can just come in comfortable clothing. We'll provide you yoga mats and t-shirts, and there will be local experts who will take you through the practice of yoga.
So we know yoga is much popular in the Western countries than Africa. What are your plans to spread yoga in Africa? Is there any plan you have so far planned to spread yoga as a culture as well? Because we know in the Western countries it's very popular, and it's common for everybody.
Yes. See, one thing about popularizing yoga is working through schools and colleges. Because now most of us, we get exposed to yoga while studying, as children in India. Schools encourage children to take to yoga, and it is a part of physical education. So they learn some of yogic exercises while in school. The other thing, is the mental part of it. It improves concentration, it improves your attention span. And particularly students who are taking exams, they will find a lot of benefit in the practice of yoga. It improves memory, concentration, etc. So, these are two distinct ways in which we can create awareness of its benefits and popularize it. The third part, of course, is yoga for general well-being and as a preventive healthcare means. Now, what increasingly in many parts of the world doctors prescribe in hospitals is the practice of yoga to lower your blood pressure, to reduce your risk for cardiovascular diseases. So, that is the third part of it, working together with healthcare professionals and the ministries of health in various countries to make them aware of the benefits of yoga, and through them to make people aware of its benefits in terms of general well-being and improved health.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about the investment India has in Ethiopia. We know among the leading countries, China, Turkey, India is among them in investing in Ethiopia. So the investors, the Indian investors, are very much interested in investing in Ethiopia. Can you tell us about that and the volume we have here?
In terms of major economic partners and investors, we count ourselves amongst the top 3 economic partners of Ethiopia. In terms of our overall investments, it would be about $4 billion of committed foreign direct investment into Ethiopia by India, of which more than $2 billion has already been operationalized. They are in the forefront in many sectors like textile, garments, light manufacturing sectors, etc. As of now, there would be about 600 companies which are registered here, of Indian investors, of which about 55% are into manufacturing and about 20% are agricultural, horticulture, floriculture investors. So when I say 55%, which largely shows that our investments are in tune with the priorities of the government, which is to get foreign direct investment largely into light manufacturing sector. And Indian investors essentially come here because of the competitive advantages that Ethiopia offers. And therefore, while as governments we encourage them, we try and provide them with all the information that they may require in order to make an investment decision, ultimately it is they who come and weigh the risk and benefits that Ethiopia offers, and they make an investment decision. I think largely their choices have yielded good results. They are doing well. There are, of course, challenges in operating in Ethiopia, but they have been able to circumvent many of those challenges, and they find the requisite support that is required from government and other agencies is quite forthcoming. What we also see is that in terms of many other givens which go into that investment decision, Ethiopia has a lot of positives to offer, and therefore we continue to encourage our investors to look at Ethiopia as an investment destination, primarily for 2 or 3 reasons. One, that by virtue of its location, it is a gateway into Africa, and particularly with the regional free trade area and the continental free trade area agreements coming about, it would be in future also a hub. It could serve as a manufacturing hub for various investments. And 2, the large domestic market in itself. It's the second largest country in terms of population in Africa. Now imagine a country with a per capita income of $700 or $800, aspiring for a middle income status. So what you're looking at in 5 to 7 years is a richer, wealthier set of consumers. So essentially these are a few reasons which make Ethiopia as an attractive investment destination. And we continue to advise and encourage our investors to look at it.
Okay, so how about I just want to ask you about, we know India has the biggest diaspora in the world. From that, what can Ethiopia learn? How does India benefit from her diasporas?
Our diaspora is an asset. I think that is as simply put as one can. And we continue to see them as not only assets, but also, an extension of various objectives and priorities that the government has. So essentially, we have always looked at our diaspora as an extension of India and Indians. We believe that, and this is how our diaspora also feels, that you can take an Indian out of India, but you can't take India out of an Indian. So that is how it is. So they have remained very connected to their roots, to India. And the government also has made diaspora outreach a very important part of its own foreign policy objectives. What we see is that this policy has reaped rich dividends for us. Our diaspora has always been very supportive, and they have always helped us whenever we have reached out to them. I can also tell you that I feel fortunate in Ethiopia as the ambassador to be a part and to be seen as a part by our large Indian community of, in terms of numbers, it's about 5,000, but it's a community which is very large, which is very active, and which is also very vibrant. Our diaspora, what we find is that wherever they have gone, they have assimilated very well in the local community. And even the local community and the host government has always viewed them very positively. And that, I think, is an added benefit for us.
Okay. Do they pay tax back home as a contribution to the development of the country?
I don't think under our taxation policies we tax our diaspora. Essentially, there are different parts of the diaspora. There are some people who don't hold Indian passports, but they have been given cards by the government which recognize them as overseas citizens of India. They obviously don't have a tax-paying status in India. And then the second category is those of non-resident Indians who still continue to hold Indian passports. But because of their NRI status, if they stay outside India for a certain period of time, then their taxation status changes, whereby they are not required to pay taxes in India. Our general fiscal policies or taxation policies with respect to the diaspora has been, the general government policies have been that, while, they may be outside the country, we would like them to participate in the development of the country. So therefore, many of the policies with respect to the diaspora and their participation in ownership of assets, etc., are being liberalized, or we are trying to take a more open view on that.
Your Excellency, as an ambassador in Ethiopia, before you leave Ethiopia, what are the most significant things that you wanted to achieve before you leave?
Well, that's again, a very good question. As any ambassador, or as someone who's heading a diplomatic relationship between two countries, not heading really, but who's a part of, who's really a bridge between two countries. As an ambassador, one would like to improve bilateral relations to a much higher level. And I can share with you that, when I came in and I presented my credentials to President Honorable Dr. Mulatu Teshome, and we had a discussion on the state of bilateral relations. So he told me, Ambassador, you must work to further elevate our bilateral relations, because there's still a lot that we can do to achieve the full potential of these relations. And I think that in itself has served as something which is the objective of my tenure. Our political relations, though very close and very comfortable, we didn't have bilateral visits for a long time. And I think what has happened in the last 2 years is we've been able to operationalize a lot of bilateral mechanisms. And we had the visit of our president to Ethiopia, which was very significant because it was the first visit of our president after assuming office. Ethiopia was amongst the first countries that he visited. And it was the first visit of an Indian president to Ethiopia, which happened after 45 years. So I think I was fortunate that we were able to organize that visit. We were also able to operationalize the Joint Commission mechanism by having its second meeting after 10 years, after 8 years, which happened last year in India, when Foreign Minister Dr. Vakne traveled to India to meet our External Affairs Minister, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj. So what happens is that when you have frequent high-level bilateral exchanges between two countries, a lot of issues which the relationship may be facing gets resolved, and we are able to strategize to include new areas into our cooperation metrics and to elevate that partnership. So I think one, of course, my objective has been and will be to further elevate bilateral partnership by having more frequent high-level political relations. Two, what we see is that, the mainstay of our relationship is really our economic and commercial partnership. Now there are a lot of complementarities and synergies that we have. One example that I'll give you is that in terms of food and agriculture, which offers a lot of potential. Ethiopia has large amounts of arable land. We need a lot of pulses and oilseeds in India. Now, this is something where we can work together. The second area in terms of complementarities and synergies is renewable energy. India now is along with France, has set up the International Solar Alliance, which is the world's youngest international organization, focused on harnessing the benefits of solar energy. Now, Ethiopia, again, in terms of its solar irradiation, offers a lot of potential, which can, in a way, translate into your own domestic growth and development. So, the second objective, therefore, would be to harness such complementarities and synergies in a big way. And third is, of course, to build upon the great civilizational connect and commonalities that we have by enhancing our people-to-people contact, and events like the Festival of India and others are an effort in this direction. So therefore, this probably sums up my own intentions, desires, and objectives of my tenure.
So when you say people to people, one of the connection we make is education. And for past long years, I can say there has been a lot of Ethiopian students going to India to get a scholarship and have higher education. What is your embassy doing right now when it comes to education?
In terms of education, you have rightly brought us to this subject because I feel that this has been a traditional area of cooperation. And in terms of how Ethiopia sees India, you have always, when I say you, it's your country and your people. You've always seen India as a destination for capacity building of people and of institutions. And this is something which we also feel we offer something which is unique and which is of great use to other countries. If I talk of capacity building of individuals, we not only offer scholarships to students, we also offer training opportunities for mid-career professionals. Scholarships would be about 80 or more every year, and this is at the undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate levels. In terms of training opportunities, we offer about 400 training opportunities under our Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. We have several other scholarships and training opportunities under various other programs, which largely fall within the India-Africa framework, India-Africa Forum Summit framework. What we find is that these training and scholarship opportunities are much sought after. And it gives us a great deal of satisfaction when we find that Ethiopia utilizes all of them. And we, on an average, send one Ethiopian to India every day. Okay. So there's one Ethiopian who's boarding a flight to avail of a training or scholarship opportunity in India every day. And many of these people who come back, they do very well. I mean, of course, they all do well. And some of them have been able to occupy very eminent positions in your setup. They are prominent members of cabinet who have been trained in India. So that is something which gives us an added pride and satisfaction.
So tell us, I'm taking to an informal questions. One of the informal questions I want to ask you is, what is your favorite Ethiopian food?
Well, that's an easy question because I have zeroed in on my favorite Ethiopian food very quickly. Injera and shiro. We also cook it at home, I can tell you that. And sometimes also, if we get tips, so that is something which works very well for me as a meal.
Okay, Your Excellency, from Ethiopian traditional dances, which dance do you like most?
Well, I must confess that I do not know the difference or the names of various dance forms, but I can tell you that I've seen almost all of them. I've seen performances in various places, including your National Palace. The two things which stand out. One, of course, I found them very, very energetic. I think these dance forms are very energetic, very rhythmic. They are done with a lot of enthusiasm. And two, what I see is that Ethiopian people, irrespective of age, they take to dance very well. And I've seen people, whatever age or wherever they may be, they naturally take to the beats of the song. And they're very graceful when they're dancing.
So how about Ethiopian Amharic words you have learned so far?
Well, just the very basic ones.
Can you tell me some?
Okay, you'll have to help me there. Of course, I know the word for thank you. Ameseganil.
Ameseganallo.
And the greetings, of course, salam, salamnu. a few food things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like what?
Just the basic ones, you know.
Okay.
Just the basic ones. Yeah, I've one word which I see used very often here is, you know, in fact, I picked this up and then I asked for the meaning for this. Tinishk.
Tinish.
Yeah, it's used very often and a lot of people use it.
Yeah. So, is there any favorite music that you want to invite our audience? Ethiopian music?
Ethiopian music, of course, you know, I do not remember the name or the description of it, but I can certainly pass it on to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do that. And
do you know the
maybe
singer?
You can include it.
The name of the singer?
I'm not very sure of the name of the singer.
Okay.
But I'll pass this on to you.
No problem. Thank you, Ambassador, for having this interview with us. It's an honor to have this interview with you as well.
Thank you, Bethlehem. I certainly enjoyed it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
የዛሬው ፕሮግራማችን ይህንን ይመስል ነበር። በህንድ ላይ ያዘጋጀንላችሁ ፕሮግራም በዚህ አላበቃም። ሳምንት ቀጣዩን ክፍል ይዘንላችሁ እስከምንገናኝ ሰላም ሁኑ።